sugar is in a ton of stuff that you might not even realize, beyond just candy bars and cookies and all the BS.
Yeah. And if you want to get fat quick, Nick, and increase your risk of having a heart attack and stroke, add sugar and meat together. If you're somebody...
So this is not a good, this is not something good to hear for all the barbecue people out there.
No.
That's like just a mess of sugar and meat and spices, and which tastes really nice. And maybe you have it sparing.
If somebody's trying to break free of a chocolate bar addiction, and they're type 2 diabetic, having a chocolate protein shake once or twice a day can really give them the mouthfeel and trick their brain into thinking they're getting I won't name a chocolate bar, but they're getting that chocolate sensation. Let's say they use chocolate protein powder. Everybody, to your point, Nick, everybody needs to be ingesting protein on some level pretty much every single day, because all of our tissues are turning over and we need it for the immune system. And like you said,
I was actually going to ask about that. How does protein impact the immune system? All right, Mike, let's talk about some proteins. What do you say?
let's do it, brother.
Now, this is something that we have talked about a lot throughout a bunch of our other episodes because protein is so important in overall nutrition, but we've never really honed in on just the protein. And so I wanted to just kind of take it back and make sure people understood, what proteins are, why we need them, and how protein intake can vary from when we're 20 till when we're 100.
Are we making it to 100, Nick?
I'm thinking 101.
Brother.
I just want to I got to get one more year in there.
If you get us to 101, you are 100% in charge from this day going forward, brother. You get us to 101, you are my God.
I feel like it's going to happen. Now, quality of life at 101, who knows? But I'm thinking I'm going to age gracefully, stay active, eat healthy, and...
So if I'm drooling down my face and shit, and you have to wipe it up, it's your fault. I'm going to say, Nick, this is your doing.
I'm putting that on Mrs. Lynch. I'm sorry. That's beyond. I never agreed to that. So I'm sorry, that's on you. But
101. All right, let's do it. Protein.
Cheers to 101.
Yeah, man.
Right?
101.
All right, but in all seriousness, can you just start by telling us what are proteins?
Right. So protein, when we look at protein, Nick, what we're really looking to get is the 9 essential amino acids. And those amino acids that are in protein are the amino acids that are responsible and facilitate continuous growth and tissue turnover. And that's why people are exercising. They're breaking down muscle to turn over new tissue. And we need those amino acids. You can think about them as like bricks, Nick, to build a building. So they're the building blocks of all cells in the human body.
All tissue, not just muscle tissue.
Oh yeah, we are proteins. That's basically it. And what we want to do is make sure that we get enough of the 9 essential amino acids that because our body can make certain amino acids, but certain amino acids we cannot make on our own, and we need to get them from the ingestion of those amino acids.
And so hair, fingernails, skin cells, collagen is a protein, right?
Yes, it is.
And even blood, I think, is made up of mostly protein.
Yes.
So we really are just a big bag of protein. Some water.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're a lot of water, right? But protein and So it's
because a lot of times when you hear people say, I got to get my protein, it's people who are working out, they're trying to build muscle.
Yeah.
But this, to me, feels like it's really important for anybody at all levels, at any age, at any physical fitness level. Protein is a key component in overall health.
Sure it is. And obviously, a lot of our viewers will be exercising or have started exercising. So protein amounts, and we're going to address that today, protein amounts do go up. The protein companies and the protein bar companies that are not endorsing or are not paying us yet, they would like us to think that we need huge amounts of protein, and we'll discuss that as well. Sometimes the amounts that some people say we need are kind of overblown for monetarily gain.
Well, listen,
But
if you have a company and you sell protein, you want to convince everybody they need a lot of protein.
right.
Right? If you sell widgets, everybody needs a widget, right? So it's like, it is what it is. I
Yeah.
get it. People have to understand advertising is not a documentary about what's actually happening in the world. It's like a video or a still image that's trying to convince you or change your mind about something so that you buy something.
Right. But protein, you do need more protein. We'll talk about as you get older, and if you're exercising intensely, that number does go up. But everybody, to your point, Nick, everybody needs to be ingesting protein on some level pretty much every single day, because all of our tissues are turning over, and we need it for the immune system. And like you said,
I was actually
air
going to
growth.
ask about that. How does protein impact the immune system?
So it's, I can only speak to that on a personal training level,
Sure.
but it just gives us the building blocks to turn over, because we're always recycling, where our tissues are always dying off and recycling. So that's pretty much,
Because I know that
it's
malnutrition can mean that you have a higher risk of infection in a lot of
yes.
ways.
So you need the amino acids for the tissue to heal, right? So whether you have an infection or a cut or a scrape or a break, we're always kind of in this breakdown healing situation. So the amino acids are a big part of that, part of the healing.
Protein needs change as we age, right? So your protein needs from when you were 12 years old are not going to be the same as your protein needs when you're 102 years old,
Yes.
right? And then is that a constant rate of change? Are there periods in our life where that dramatically changes? How does that work?
Well, from common sense, you just got to say that the protein requirements go up, Nick, just because you'll probably be at some point in your life double the amount of weight that you are when you're a young guy, right?
Right.
Like,
When you're 12, you
yeah,
weigh 80 pounds.
right.
And then when you're 40, you
You're
weigh
180, let's
Yeah.
say. So your protein requirements are going to be based on body weight. And most people will get out into the real world, and people might be doing laborers' jobs, and they're starting to exercise. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was 11 years old, I wasn't getting under a squat bar and doing push-ups and breaking down my muscle tissue.
No, but you were climbing and running and riding bikes and
Yes.
skateboarding and doing things
Right.
like that, which is
It's
its own form
activity,
activity.
but I wasn't intentionally breaking down the muscle structure
Right.
to rebuild it back up. However, as we get older, Nick, we don't absorb the protein that we ingest as well. So we need more protein, overall protein in a day or in a meal to reach what's called a positive nitrogen retention. And that's what we're really looking to get when we get to those amino acids. We get a positive nitrogen retention. That helps with the turnover of new tissue and bone and all that. So when we're younger, we need a smaller amount of overall dietary protein in a meal to get to that positive nitrogen retention.
But now I would assume that when you're younger, there's these growth spurt times in our life, right? So let's say I remember for me, somewhere between 11 and 14, I grew like almost a foot.
Did you really?
It was a big jump in my height.
Okay.
I'm assuming my protein needs went up during that point. If the factory is just producing cells and you're trying to, stretch yourself out like that, your protein needs probably go up at that point as well.
Absolutely. And your hormones were starting to come alive and stuff like that. But at that point, Nick, let's say I gave you 20 grams of protein from chicken breast, and that got you into a positive nitrogen retention. The Nick Skolnick now might need about 40 to get that same effect.
Wow.
So that's why protein requirements do go up for age. Forget about activity and strength training and sprinting and all these things that we do when we want to get fit.
Mm-hmm.
Just as we get older, we need a little bit more protein to get to that positive nitrogen retention.
And we've talked a little bit about supplementing, especially for the older people in our family, with protein shakes and different things like that. Probably a good idea, as long as you're dealing with, a company that's trustworthy and you know what you're getting and it's a healthier type protein shake. Sounds to me like it might help a lot of people to supplement some of their meals with a little bit of protein powder.
I think it's beneficial for a couple of different reasons, Nick. First off, people are busy, And, eating small meals throughout the day may not be feasible for some people, especially if they're still working and stuff like that. So a shake may come in or a supplement. And sometimes this can really help. I think I mentioned this. This can help with somebody who's battling chocolate addiction or sugar
Yes,
addiction.
you did mention
Some of
this.
these chocolate protein powders or vanilla, strawberry, whatever the flavor are quite delicious. So if somebody is trying to break free of a chocolate bar addiction and they're type 2 diabetic, having a chocolate protein shake once or twice a day can really give them the mouthfeel and trick their brain into thinking they're getting I won't name a chocolate bar, but they're getting that chocolate sensation. Let's say they use chocolate protein powder.
Sure.
Some people, as they get older, have digestion issues, or they may have dentures or something like that, and they have a tough time masticating animal flesh, especially several times a day. So a shake is something that's easily digested, provided they don't have an allergy to whatever's in that protein powder, and it's really in a bioavailable form where the digestion that is required for that protein powder is very minimal. Where animal flesh, or even stuff like vegan forms of protein, like beans and lentils, they're very fibrous, and there's a bit of work that comes along the digestive tract when you're eating those types of proteins. And those are just a few reasons why somebody may want to think about supplementation. But for anybody because there's people, we know them, Nick, right? They're anti-supplement. You don't have to drink protein powder or protein bars, but they are there for people that want to try them.
What are some healthy proteins that people can have? And let's go meal by meal. So let's do a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. So I wake up, I'm pretty hungry. I want to have something healthy. I know I need some protein. Are eggs my only option?
No. So when we talk about, because you have two different proteins, right? You have your animal-based proteins.
Sure.
And then you have plant-based proteins. And there's people for religious reasons, they may have cholesterol issues, or they just want to be vegan. So you have your vegan or plant-based, and then you have your animal proteins. Now, way back a long time ago, Nick, a lot of people thought that plant-based proteins were inferior. And the only way that you can get jacked and get muscular was through animal proteins. And that has been debunked many different times. Okay. So in regards to breakfast, we have eggs.
Sure.
For people that want to keep their cholesterol in check, because some people, and we need to do a video on this, some people are hyperabsorbers, and I think I mentioned that before.
Yep.
And the egg yolks do drive their serum cholesterol up. So you could do egg whites, and then you have things like cottage cheese and yogurts, and hopefully they don't have a lot of added sugars.
Yeah, we're not talking about yogurt that has a bunch of sugar in there and added.
Yep. So we have that. There's, sausages, chicken sausage or turkey sausage, and,
you want to look for stuff that's not highly processed, right? You want to look for stuff, if it's been frozen for 6 years before you bought it, and the list of ingredients is like 83 things long. I don't know if that's the best breakfast sausage to have, and I'm not saying any specific companies here, but really, quality goes a long way in this regard.
You're right, because when you do look at sausage, there's going to be protein, there's going to be a little bit of fat, and a lot of sausage, they add sugar to it. So that is a recipe for heart disease and fat gain and stuff like that. So if you're going to eat a breakfast sausage, you want to make sure that it's high in protein and it doesn't have, like you said, Nick, a lot of crap and a lot of added sugars, because we're going to get bad comments of like, hey, I listened to you, I ate sausage, and I'm a fat bastard now.
Well, it's unbelievable. When I did a diet years ago, the Whole30 diet.
Okay.
You got to cut sugar out.
I've heard of it.
And I started for the first time looking at even labels that I didn't think I had to look at, like, bacon. There's no sugar in bacon. Oh, yeah, there is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's no sugar in this thing. Oh, yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Sugar is in a ton of stuff that you might not even realize, beyond just candy bars and cookies and all the BS.
Yeah. And if you want to get fat quick, Nick, and increase your risk of having a heart attack and stroke, add sugar and meat together. If you're somebody,
so this is not something good to hear for all the barbecue people out there.
No,
that's like just a mess of sugar and meat and spices, and
yeah,
which tastes really nice. And maybe you have it sparingly.
Yeah. If you're somebody that likes a lot of protein foods and you're very steak lover and
Yeah.
a chicken lover and a turkey lover, you want to keep your sugars, not complex carbohydrates, but you want to keep them on the lower end. You don't want to entertain both of those energy substrates in the same meal for certain.
Interesting.
So, then
Okay, so getting back to breakfast.
Yeah.
So for the animal protein people, we have our sausage, we have some cottage cheese, we have eggs.
Right. Yogurts,
Yeah.
and then protein shakes, of course.
Mhm.
And there are some vegan protein shakes out there.
Now hold on, with the protein shakes, can you just add protein powder to a smoothie? Are we adding too many things together? Because if you got bananas and fruit and all this other stuff, and then you're adding protein powder in there,
Right.
is that reasonable?
That's a great question because you're saying there's sugar there in the fruit, right?
Yep.
And that's an excellent question there. No, because most protein powders are going to be void of saturated fat and dietary cholesterol. Okay. Now, whey protein isolate it's got like 5 milligrams of cholesterol. Whey protein concentrate has a little bit more cholesterol, but it's very small amounts. But the saturated fat and the fat is pretty much non-existent.
Okay.
So that was a great question. I'm happy you brought that up. So no, you can entertain both of those at the same time.
Okay.
Provided, now if you want to lose weight, having huge amounts of fruits, first thing in the morning may not be the best, but if you're somebody who's exercising hard, you're at an ideal body weight, you got a couple pounds to lose in your training, yeah, that's a great option for people.
Okay.
Whole fruits with some clean, lean proteins.
Because that could be a good, if you're trying to avoid animal proteins, that could be a good way to put, like a vegan protein powder into a smoothie, and that's a way to start your day.
Correct. And
of course, the yogurts and the cottage cheese also fall into that category.
Right. And there's a lot of vegan protein sources out there, Nick, and protein powders, and a lot of them are garbage. I personally, when somebody says, Mike, I want to use a vegan protein powder, I go with pea protein isolate.
Is that a type of protein or is that a company? That's a type.
That's a type.
They take it from pea, like peas, like a pea pod.
Yeah, so they're going to take it from yellow peas. And if you want to spend an extra buck or two, go order organic, because peas do get sprayed with certain crops, Nick. Some are the bugs like them better than others. So
they call it the dirty dozen, right? Because there are some like strawberries. If you buy strawberries, you got to get organic strawberries.
That's correct. We need to do a video on that. And so you definitely want to go organic, but pea protein isolate is got all the amino acids. They add some leucine to it, which is an important amino acid to turn over tissue. Because pea protein is a little bit low in leucine, and so they'll add it. So it does give you the muscle building effect that whey protein isolate does. And for people that like a thick shake, pea protein, because whey protein is thin. So if somebody likes a nice heavy shake that keeps them full, pea protein is a very thick protein that kind of stays with you longer. And by the way,
so it could be a good choice for people who aren't even vegan, who aren't looking for, they do have animal proteins, but maybe they also want that.
And by the way, I've mixed both of them together. 1 scoop of whey and 1 scoop of pea protein. And it gives you everything. It gives you the quality, because whey protein isolate, Nick, is very bioavailable to the body. Your body just soaks up whey protein isolate, which is interesting because they used to throw whey protein out way before protein supplements, because whey rises with dairy.
What is
they used
whey?
To scoop.
Oh, it's from dairy?
Yeah. So whey they used to scrape it and throw it out. Now it's $1 billion industry because they realized it didn't taste particularly great, but it's very bioavailable. Your body just soaks it up. So it's very anabolic for muscle growth.
Oh.
So I've actually taken whey protein isolate and pea protein and made a shake that way.
Of course, all that's available, but could you also have a steak for breakfast? I know people do steak and eggs, right?
You can have any protein source for breakfast as you want. I mean, look, steak and eggs is on most menus, right?
Yeah.
So, but most people don't want a steak or turkey.
That is
or
a
chicken.
very heavy meal for
Yes.
the morning
Yeah,
too.
most people don't really. A lot of people don't love breakfast, but for the people that do want to eat breakfast, those are going to be the options that most people are going to gravitate towards.
Sure. Moving on to lunch, and I guess lunch and dinner really can be kind of the same because it really is the same.
Correct.
Obviously, you're going with steaks. You have turkey burgers, things like that. Where else can we go for some good proteins
Yeah,
at like a lunch or a dinner?
we got our lean steaks. I like lean steaks. I don't.
Is that you're saying for a cut, a lean steak, or you just like trim the fat, or what are you?
Well, both, but some it's mixed in there, so it's hard to get it out. But
Yeah.
I'm a big London broil fan.
Okay.
Fillets. Most people, I haven't found many people that don't want to lose some body fat in there.
Sure.
So I always tell people, listen, when you eat red meat, make sure that it's lean. If you want a fatty steak here and there, and you're like rail thin, okay. But most people are going to want to gravitate more to the leaner cuts of red meat, turkey burgers or turkey breast, real turkey breast. I'm not talking about deli meat, okay? Grilled chicken and seafood. Any types of seafood and crustaceans, shellfish is a great option. And then we can go back over to the plant proteins. I am not a big proponent, Nick, of these, sorry, but Beyond Burgers and all that you read the ingredients and
Yeah, in the
like,
beginning, I was trying it, and then I
yeah,
started looking into the ingredients, and I was like, wait, what is all
yeah,
this?
yeah. I never tried it because of the ingredients, nutrition. So I know all these things, but I can't, people will tell me or ask me, Mike, have you ever, what do you think about them? I'm like, I don't know because I never tried them because I read the ingredients. But you can go to things like lentils, beans. I don't love too much soy in anybody's diet, but things like organic tofu, a little bit, here and there is fine.
Because
And
does tofu raise estrogen levels?
so,
Is the jury out on
yeah,
that?
the jury's out on that.
Okay.
I think
What don't you like about them?
well, first off, I particularly don't think they taste wonderful.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
And part of making people adhere to our recommendations, Nick, is eating foods that they enjoy, that they say, I can do this now, but I can do it 30 years from now. And soy and the soy products, a lot of times are just, they don't taste wonderful.
Sure.
But there is some studies showing that when you do take in large amounts of soy, that it can be estrogenic, and especially for a male audience, you do not want to raise estrogen.
Sure.
So you can have soy. I've eaten soy and tofu at times, but you don't want it to make it your main source. I don't think you want to. And I've never met anybody in my 30-something years doing this that was thriving on tons of soy. And if you do have it, just make sure that it's organic. And there's ones that are higher in protein. And those are an option for people that, for religious reasons, cholesterol reasons, or they just don't want to eat animals. Some people just are freaked out by animal flesh, and I get it.
Well, maybe they feel bad about killing the animals, and
Right, they just don't like the consistency of it,
Sure. I think also if you haven't had the animal flesh in a long time, I have a good friend who's been vegetarian for got to be 20 years at least, if not more. And we
Okay.
talked about him having a steak recently, and he just said he couldn't even imagine the mouthfeel, like kind of makes him a little nauseous.
Yep.
One eye-opening statistic that I found when I was researching this episode was that only 18% of people over the age of 70 are getting the proper protein intake that they need to thrive and survive. So this is something that really falls off, and it probably goes back to what you were saying earlier, is that the chewing becomes harder, cooking for yourself, you're not cooking huge meals anymore, you might be eating, I don't know, less or not, making it as extravagant of a dinner if it's just you or you and one other person, your kids have left the house already, whatever it is, but that is troubling to me. And that is something that we all have to look out for, if not for ourselves, for the older people in our family, and check in on them. Make sure that their diet is such that it's keeping them healthy and they're not undernourishing themselves by either trying to save money or not wanting to be a pain in the butt or not wanting to clean up after all the mess of cooking a big meal. These are things that we have to look out for.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of times too, Nick, people will deal with constipation. And I feel like I always say this, we need to do a video on this. We need to do a lot of different stuff, but
Someone should be tracking this. Can someone out there I need a list because I can't remember all of it. Mike just throws out, we got to do a video on this. Oh, the color blue, we got to do a video on that. Oh my goodness, we got to do it. So someone send me the list. We'll do the videos. Go on.
that's right, Nick. Fiber, fiber is a huge thing to make sure that you're moving that food through you. So a lot of times people will deal with constipation as they get older, with motility issues.
Yeah.
And meat can be, especially if you don't chew it enough, can be binding. So people will say, oh, when I eat that meat, I get constipated and I get bound up. So they start to eat less protein and they start to move their bowels easier, but they're not eating enough fiber and other material to pass it along.
Right.
And by default, they fix the constipation issue, but they start to muscle waste. And really, that is heart disease takes out the most people, but frailty, it's working its way towards heart disease and cancer. Frailty is a major concern.
Just wasting away.
Yes. So if you're not using your muscles, advocates of strength training on this program, right?
And just general activity as you get older.
Yeah.
If you're just sitting around watching TV all the time, eating frozen dinners, you're just on a slow to moderate decline.
Yes. But if you're not putting those muscles under tension 2 times a week and you're not meeting those protein requirements, you're going to circle the drain quicker. Big time.
Another thing that I found and I thought was very interesting was that during illness or injury, protein requirements dramatically increase. Your body is looking for between 50 and 100% more proteins when you're on the mend. And so if you're in a hospital and they're giving you crappy food and you're trying to recover and you're not eating because there's some bland BS that they serve you every day, or even if you're at home and you're recovering from an illness or you're recovering from an injury, you got to increase that protein to give your body the tools to help fix what's going wrong.
And that's what we just spoke about before, right? When you break down muscle through exercise, you need that protein, to your point, to turn that tissue over. And because people get this wrong, Nick, they think that they grow in the gym. And this is why so many people, again, another video, but so many people don't get the results in the gym that they're looking for. Because when you go to the gym and do strength training, you're actually breaking yourself down. You're causing what's called acute microtraumas. They're little tiny cuts in the muscle. You're not growing in the gym. You might get a pump and the blood goes to that muscle. But it's when you go home and sleep and eat protein and rest and recover that you're turning over that tissue and it's growing bigger and stronger. It's the gym is just the stimulus.
Now, what about if you're working out, but you just want to get cut? You don't want to grow muscle. Do you still need that protein?
You need it more than ever, because you generally, to get lean and shredded, you got to be reducing carbohydrates and fats. So you got to eat something.
So what are you going to eat at that point?
Yeah. So, and also too, especially carbohydrates, Nick. Carbohydrates are what's called protein sparing. And we should talk about this at some point before we wrap this up, is when you eat adequate carbohydrates, that actually can lower the amount of protein that you need, because fats a little bit, and keto people will get mad at me at this, but they're nowhere as what's called protein sparing as carbohydrates. So when you eat carbohydrates, it really allows the protein to do what it's supposed to do. And protein is not a fuel. It's a building block. Now, you can use protein as a fuel and an energy source.
So what's the fuel? Carbohydrate?
I like carbohydrates. Your body's going to use either glucose or fatty acids, ketones, ketogenic diet. But our bodies, I believe, and most doctors and people in the know believe that we need glucose. So when you're a dieter or you're somebody trying to get lean and you adopt a higher protein diet, your carbohydrates are low, your fats are low, so the requirement of overall protein needs to go up a bit just to make sure that you're getting adequate amounts of protein, because you don't have those other nutrients in abundance that are protein sparing, like carbohydrates and fats.
Is there a way, an easy rule of thumb, and maybe I've even asked this before, but to calculate how much protein we need based on body weight,
Yeah.
based on age, based on all this stuff?
Yeah. So again, we talked about this in our Q&A a couple of weeks ago, is you want to look at what your ideal body weight is, not what your body weight is. Because if somebody is 300 pounds, Nick,
Yes, you did mention this.
and their ideal is 150, and unfortunately, we're living in a society now where that is not something that we don't deal with. We do deal with people that are 180, 150 pounds overweight, 200 pounds overweight. So you want to look or think back to when you weren't heavy, or what, if you're somebody who wants, because not everybody's heavy. Some people want to build muscle. They want to put on 10, 20 pounds. You want to look at roughly what that ideal body weight is, Nick. And you can go as low as about half of your body weight in protein. Okay. So if you're 200 pounds, 100 pounds in totality for the whole day.
100 grams for
100
the whole day.
grams. Okay. 100 grams. Thank you. 100 grams of protein for the whole day. And then you can go all the way up to, if you're somebody who wants to get jacked or somebody who wants to get really lean and you want to bring those carbs and fats way down, you can go all the way up to a gram or 1.2 grams per pound of body weight.
Oh, so at that 200-pound mark, you could have 200 grams of protein.
Yeah,
even a little more,
220. You could go, yeah. And there's been studies where they've pushed it even much higher, and there was no strain, or they didn't see any sort of negative effects on the kidneys, because that's a concern for people. Now, obviously, anybody that has a pre-existing kidney condition, they have to be mindful of the amount of protein they take. And the jury's out whether animal proteins, because there was some thought at one point that animal proteins were harder on the kidneys than plant proteins. And there's some people coming out now saying, yeah, that's not true. There's some people even saying that reducing protein is not necessary in people with kidney, but that's new science and we won't even go down that road.
Sure.
But
so if you have a pre-existing kidney condition, you got to watch those proteins. But can protein affect kidney function if you don't have a pre-existing kidney condition?
So sometimes somebody can eat a high protein diet, and they can see an elevation in their blood work that is BUN, blood urea nitrogen levels. Okay. Again, the jury's out whether, because some people will say, oh, my BUN is just elevated because I'm on a high protein diet. I'm like, okay, well, it's still elevated.
Yeah.
It's still elevated. So I've actually seen that in my own personal blood work, Nick, where I really pushed the envelope on protein and my BUN does go out of range.
Okay.
I don't want any of my blood work being out of range. Even if they say it's okay, Mr. Lynch, it's because you're on a high protein diet.
Then maybe you shouldn't be on the high protein diet.
Yeah, it's still out of range. I want to bring it back into a healthy range. Okay. I do believe that the medical science and things get proven wrong all the time, but for the most part, we've been testing these markers for a long period of time. So when I do lower my protein and maybe mix it with some plant proteins and animal proteins, my BUN goes right back down in range.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anybody sees that their ALT or AST, these are liver enzymes, because too much protein can actually strain your liver as well. Okay. So if they see their AST or ALT go up and their BUN, blood urea nitrogen levels are elevated, that may be a sign that being too aggressive in their protein, they just want to bring it down a bit. Okay. But to answer your question back, Nick, half the body weight on the lower end, okay, and all the way up to like a gram to 1.2 grams per pound of ideal lean body weight.
Ideal being the key word there.
Yeah. So if you're a 200-pound guy and you're really honest with yourself and say, I got 30 pounds of fat here.
You're probably at 170,
That's
whatever
correct.
it is.
Yeah. So it could be half of that 170 and all the way up to 170, a little bit over. And look, here's the other thing too. Past the 1 gram, Nick, the amount of change that people will see in muscle growth is like
negligible.
Yeah. No one's going to see it, and you probably won't see it either.
Okay.
It's like, I mean, there's labs figuring this out. And it's like this tiny little bit But if you're somebody who likes a high protein meal and you feel that that works well for you, then you can go on that higher end.
What are some things that people should look for as markers that they're not getting enough protein?
Okay, so hair that's not growing, if provided you still have hair on your head. Uh, uh, I like the rule of taking your fingernail, Nick, and pushing on it. And if your fingernail feels nice and stable and hard, pretty good sign that you're getting adequate protein. If your fingernail feels bendy and flimsy, you're probably not getting enough overall protein.
Oh,
If you're somebody who's strength training and you train a muscle and you're training it adequately and you're not overtraining, if you stay sore for 5, 6 days late, after you've done this muscle or muscle groups and you're not new to the game of fitness, you might not be recovering. You might not be getting enough amino acids. There's no science to back this one up, but maybe a low sex drive too
okay.
can show you that you're not getting enough building blocks. Remember, the protein is not the protein that we really want. We all know that word, but we want the amino acids that are the building blocks.
Okay.
So the name of the game of fitness is break down, recover, build back up. So if you're feeling like you're sore all the time, or you just have a lot of lethargy and you're just feeling exhausted all the time, soft nails, hair that isn't growing right, and you just feel like you're not recovering, you may be overtrained or you just might be undernourished through amino acids.
All right. We are getting close to the end here, and I
Okay.
did want to make sure we circle back on just a couple things and leave people with some takeaways. One of the big things that I'm hearing is that we get, and I'm not even sure we said this specifically yet, but this anabolic resistance, right? As we get older, our protein needs are changing, and people really have to pay attention to that because you can't just operate like you're in your 20s and your 30s if you're in your 40s, 50s, and beyond,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So we did touch a little bit that we need more amino acids as we get older. And it's just, again, we need more total amino acids in a given meal to get, I don't want to get too technical here, but you need a certain amount of what's called L-leucine. And studies show that it's between 2 and 3 grams to get to a positive retention or nitrogen
And
retention.
leucine is in protein.
It is. And it's going to be higher in animal protein than it is in plants, but it's in plants as well. So as we get older, we need more of those amino acids to get to that positive nitrogen retention to recycle and turn over brand new tissue. And that tissue can be your skin. It could be your bicep. It can be, well, hair's not skin, at least I don't think it is, but we're constantly turning over. So as we get older, we need more total grams in a meal to get to that positive nitrogen retention. And that's essentially what anabolic resistance is.
Okay. And so the protein needs are going up and the leucine needs are going up as we age.
Yeah.
So we really want to look carefully at what we're putting in our body at any age, really, but certainly as we get older and make sure that we're having adequate protein for the activity levels that we have. And hopefully people are moving and being active and walking places and doing strength training and different things like that. Any other takeaways that you want to leave people with?
Yeah, there's a big push. Somebody may have heard of the OMAD diet, and that stands for 1 meal a day diet. I do believe, Nick, that protein distribution throughout the day is going to be better for most people now, because there's some studies showing that, let's say you need 150 grams of protein, because there was a school of
That's
thought.
a big meal.
Yes, it is a big meal, and it's going to wreak havoc on most people's digestive tract. But there was a school of thought back probably about 10 years ago that we couldn't digest and assimilate more than 30 grams of protein in a given meal. That's been debunked, and we now realize that we can absorb and metabolize much more protein in a meal. However, I do think and have seen in 30 years of being a trainer that when you it's a little bit more laborious, but when you distribute that protein throughout the waking days or the waking hours in the day, that you're going to see a better effect on muscle growth, recovery, and what you just mentioned, digestion.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say about 3 times a day. And if you're somebody that likes small, frequent meals, you could go all the way up to 6.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say for most people, Nick, if they're doing cardio and they're breaking down their muscle through strength training and they want to sleep well and have a high sex drive and have good hair growth, provided they still have hair on their head, a minimum of 3 doses throughout the day. So it could be 2 meals and a shake or 2 shakes and a meal, but kind of taking that protein amount that you need and at least dividing into 3 feedings and upward to 6.
Oh.
And that's going to really be depending on the person's work schedule or school schedule or whatever they're doing and their digestion. And look, can they still, there's a difference, Nick, between surviving and thriving.
Right.
So can someone survive on 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day? They absolutely can. Can they get all the amino acids they need in a day? Yes. Are they going to see better performance, better digestion, and better all muscle growth if they kind of spread that nice and evenly through the day? I've seen that is the case.
All right.
So,
and I just wanted to mention again also, in addition to that, for me, the most eye-opening thing that I learned from this episode was what you need for recovery. So if you're sick and if you're recovering and if you're not, you got to increase those protein levels to give your body the tools it needs to help you fix yourself. And that's really important.
Yeah,
that's really important for people.
One other thing, I think we just talked about this last week or a week before too, but maybe somebody didn't see that video, is protein is very thermic and it's a dieter's friend because it digests very slow, but about 30% of roughly 25% of 30% of the calories, especially with animal protein, are your body doesn't really see those calories.
Because it uses them to turn it over.
Correct. They're burned off in digestion. So if you eat 100 calories of chicken breast, Nick, you're probably only seeing about 70 to 75 calories. So in the war to lose body fat and counting calories or managing calories, protein can be very beneficial.
So if you are counting calories and you had, easy numbers, 100 grams, do you only count that as 70 grams?
No, you should count. You should count it for what it is.
Okay.
But just know it's kind of like when I set my alarm clock 10 minutes earlier. Like, I think I'm like, I know what time it is, but I still do it anyway. I think I'm getting more sleep, but you should calculate it for what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So don't start gaming the system and eating more because you're thermic and you're gonna burn it off.
Yeah, because then what are you doing at that point? The benefit is to get a little bit more of a calorie deficit,
right?
Because most people want to lose weight, right?
Sure.
So and I would be honest here, Nick, that's because you're a smart guy. Most people don't have the G2, as my dad would call it, the mindset to start that gets muddy, man.
Sure.
Right. You start to figure out your calories and then you'll just drive yourself bananas. But that was a great question. I didn't even thought about that in my 30 years of doing this.
Well, I know our audience has a lot of G2. They're very smart, so they were probably thinking the same thing.
At least they do, because I own.
But that's all I got. I'm, so happy that you were able to join us for this episode. I know I learned a lot. I'm sure you did as well. Protein is a really important part of our overall diet. And if you have any questions about proteins, really about anything in general that we talked about, leave us a comment, send us a direct message. Let somebody know if you like this video and maybe they'll watch it as well. We really appreciate all of you watching. And Mike, you want to have the last word?
That's it. Just make sure that you're eating a well-balanced diet with all macronutrients, protein, fats, and carbohydrates, and make sure that you're eating good quality proteins that you can digest and assimilate. And despite what anybody on the internet, Nick, says and convinces people that they need to drink this protein powder or they must eat this food. I think I said this.
Unless, of course, someone wants to sponsor the show, in which case you do need to have that protein right away in abundance.
Well, he's right again, but there's no food that you need to have, right? So you must eat salmon. I particularly, when I eat salmon, I repeat it for like 4 or 5 hours. I probably just don't have the digestive enzymes to digest it. Now, I will be honest, I'll throw myself on the bus because I've heard and know that cold water fish is so beneficial. I have forced myself to eat salmon.
Have you tried smoked salmon? Because like a breakfast smoked salmon might be better for you than...
I've tried them all.
Okay.
And
all right.
you shouldn't be eating any protein that you don't enjoy or is fighting you back. And
Because
giving
there's
you
so many to choose from.
Yeah, there's so many to choose from, and you don't have to eat any protein powder or drink any protein powder, or there's nothing you must ingest. The name of the game is to figure out how much protein you need, spread that out through the day, make sure that you're getting enough fiber and water and activity, and you're going to thrive.
Okay,
So,
great.
all right, that's all I got.
All right, well, thank you, Mike, and thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye. Please hit the like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any content in the future.